Isaac Sarason is a skilled hacker formerly employed by British Telecom-Sprint. With his health failing, Isaac did the only thing he could think of. He ran. He found a haven in a working-class district of the city known as Little Russia. There Isaac took on a new name, Ishmael. Within hours of his arrival, he was embroiled in the affairs of a brutal member of Lomidze organized crime family known as Leo. Convinced by a longtime friend, Frankie, to flee from his commitments to the Lomidze family, Isaac found himself hunted by the ruthless Leo. On a rooftop, far from witnesses, Leo murdered Frankie. Only through the use of his skills as a hacker was Isaac able to drive Leo off. Now wounded, alone, and far from help, Isaac depends on the kindness of strangers. What do you do when the only way to save those you love is through the use of proxies? Colbyjack.net is proud to present Firmware Proxy by Colbytrax. 32. I woke to a foul smell under my nose. I gasped, torn between sleeping and waking. "Leo is coming!" I gasped out. Fatima's firm hand was on my shoulder, his voice close to my ear. No, it was only a dream." Fatima ran his hands over my scalp. I knew from experience he was checking both the seen and unseen through the screens in his burqa. "Just bad dreams. Your shunts are running lower than they should." He held still for a long moment. "There. I've set them up to maximum safe levels. You should start feeling better in a few moments." Fatima backed away from me. Behind him, I saw a second form in a matching black burqa. "You brought a nurse?" I croaked. Fatima laughed a moment. No, not a nurse. This is my eldest son, Yakub. He will make a fine doctor someday." "Son?" Words still were hard to catch. Their meaning seemed to run before and behind me every time I tried to open my mouth. "My oldest boy. Why do you look so startled?" Fatima let out a little chuckle. "Do you think I met his mother this way?" No. Until last night, none of my family knew about my secret." Fatima turned toward his son. "It is at times like this, when your faith is challenged, that you separate true belief from mouth service." "What happened?" I struggled to sit up. I saw stars before my eyes. "That is a story for another time over a pot of tea in a place more appropriate for conversation. Suffice it to say, his mother has taken my daughters and his brother to her mother's place." "I'm sorry," I said. Yakub was working his way out of his burqa. "Why is he undressing?" "Yakub is going to take your place for a little while." Fatima was unplugging my Opempo null from its accessories. He grabbed the control gloves from where they lay, unused behind the ancient high-definition television I used as a monitor, and tossed them to me. "You'll need those." "What's going on?" I asked as I struggled with the gloves. "We're moving you," Fatima answered as he powered up the now disconnected Opempo null. Yakub placed his burqa on the back of the chair. Yakub was a dark-skinned youth of barely 18, with a thick sculptured beard. He was dressed in khaki pants and a tight white thermal shirt made of a fabric which looked too light to be warm. In another neighborhood, he'd have been well on his way to being a model or actor. Fatima reached over and unplugged the power cord from my shunt network. "There should be enough charge to carry you until I can get you hooked up." Fatima reached toward Yakub. Yakub looked at him in confusion. "The power cord in my bag! Quick!" Yakub jumped, snapped out of his state of confusion. Maybe saying he was confused was just being mean. Here was a boy, a young man really, who'd only found out last night his father was a transvestite who worked as a doctor to criminals, who was now part of some plan I had yet to figure out. As Fatima secured the plug to my head and then fiddled with the Opempo null as if he were looking for the correct port, I continued to wonder about Yakub and his presence in my room. Why had he taken the burqa off? Why had he worn a burqa in the first place? It was obvious that he didn't share his father's proclivities. Then it dawned on me. "You plan on having Yakub take my place while I slip out in his burqa?" Fatima turned toward his son, satisfied with the connection between my Pemapo null and the shunts in my head. Told you he was a smart one. He is a regular mullah, 1 part fool, mixed with an equal part sage. Jakob laughed hard, his teeth perfect and white in the dimness of my cell. From what you told me, he is more like the mullah who saved the moon from the well. Fatima laughed a light laugh. You'll have to monitor your shunts on your computer. How can I do that without a screen or infoscope? I asked. I still hadn't been able to form the words I needed to say, but they would come. Fatima put the Opemapo null into my hands. Don't drop that. I'm using one of its plugs to power your shunts. You drop that, you die. There's a holster for it in the corner. I motioned in the direction of where I last remembered seeing it. Jakob recovered it while I struggled to put my legs on the floor. Fatima took the mess of straps and clasps in his hands and made sense of them. Once his hands knew how it worked, it took him but a few minutes to rig the Opemapo against my hip. If I had to do it alone, I'd have had to be standing. Fatima appeared to have no such restriction. Must have been something he learned in medical school. You can't do this, I said. Why can't I? It is obvious I can, and I will, Fatima answered as he helped me to my feet. Jakob, put the burqa over him. Ishmael, raise your hands above your head. Don't worry, I will support you. I did as instructed. You shouldn't do this. Leo is coming. He will kill whoever he finds here, I pled. Why would he come here? Fatima asked me in a tone which made me feel like a lying child. He'd come because Mossbana tricked me at the Red Square, I answered. Jakob looked at me, worry in his eyes. Fatima's hands roughly adjusted the burqa over me. The built-in display of the face screen came to life as it came to rest on my head. I felt the ring of something like a hat on my head. I looked up and saw how the fabric was kept at the proper distance from my face by a wire ring secured to whatever was on my head. Fatima was right. You could see well in one of these. Intelligent fabric presented a full field of view around me which moved like a movie screen in a breeze. Fatima's hands ran over the Opemapo null. Is there a button to linking into a remote monitor? I reached down and pushed his hands away. It's right here. A few seconds later, the familiar desktop of the Opemapo null was projected over my view of the room. I toggled the controls on my gloves and moved the desktop to the side. I loaded up the shunt monitor program and saw that everything was working properly. I turned toward Jakob, my arms restrained by the burqa. Damn, how do you pick anything up? Put your arms in the sleeves, Jakob answered. There are built-in gloves. Just need to wiggle your fingers around a bit. I found the burqa gloves. The smart fabric adjusted to my hands, neither confining nor hindering the controls built into my Opemapo null controller gloves. I pointed at Jakob. You can't leave him here. Leo will kill him. I asked you how Leo could find you, Fatima began, and you said it was because Mossbana had tricked you. What did she do? Hack into your turned-off computer while you slept? No. I went into the red square switch to check on the traps I had placed there, and she trapped one of my traps, which let her take over my computer and learn my location. I admitted. The words came hard to my lips. A glance at the shunt monitor showed me at near the operational limit of the shunts under normal conditions. Fatima turned toward Jakob with a posture which suggested deep thought. According to your shunt logs, the shunts were set to minimal settings since I left yesterday. All the vital signs suggest you were in a state of deep sleep. I'm sorry, but thanks to an error on my part, you were incapable of doing anything which would cause stress. You didn't set them to minimum settings. Mossbana did that when she took over my computer, I answered. If she had been in your shunts, why do they show no activity above baseline? Fatima asked. Jakob looked scared. If I were getting through to anyone, it was him. Yeah, but he might be right. This Mossbana, if she is as skilled as the mullah here, she could have trapped him, learned his secrets, and have sent this Leo out to kill him, Jakob said. No, son, Fatima said. There's no way for this to have happened. His computer was off. His logs say he was asleep since I left. This is but a fever dream created by a tortured brain. No, listen, I cried. Mospa Anna talked to me through my computer. The only reason I was able to stop her was by shutting it off. I was stretching the truth, but the man had to listen. If he went through with his plan, his son would die. I had no doubt of that. Leo had killed others for less. Then why do your logs say you were asleep? Fatima asked. I don't know, I admitted. She must have changed the logs to hide the fact she had dealt with me. We don't have time for this, Fatima barked. His voice had become rough and commanding. Jakob, get in bed and face the wall. If anyone looks in, they shouldn't be able to tell the difference. Like hell they won't, I barked. He's all muscle and sinew and fine chiseled looks. I look like a scarecrow. Fatima was unperturbed. He's right. Pull the blankets up high around you. That's right, up over your head. What if he is right, Yeba? Jakob asked as he arranged the covers to his father's orders. You know the plan, Fatima answered. Keep covered up and facing the wall for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, climb up there. Fatima pointed to the window set high in the wall. Break a window and escape across the roof. Images of Frankie splattered across the rooftop next to Ivanova's flashed before my eyes. I couldn't let this continue. The boy was going to be killed by Leo. You can't! He'll shoot you! I blurted out. Who will? Fatima asked. Aren't you listening, Yeba? The mullah thinks Leo is coming to kill him. I think he's right. A mullah might be crazy, but they're also wise. Jakob answered from the bed. I was dizzy. My heart pounded in my ears. I tasted metal. My toes seemed distant and unattached. You can't leave him here. This can't work. Just leave me to die. Don't risk your son. Fatima turned toward his son and then turned toward me. Why do you think Leo will kill my boy? Because that is what he does. He hunts you like a beast across rooftops until he catches you. Then he shoots you with needles so there's nothing left to identify your body but a smear of DNA. It's what he does. I swallowed hard. Just like he did to Frankie. I broke down. Tears flowed down my cheeks. I couldn't keep my face from spasming. My body wasn't my own. It was like I was feeling the death of Frankie all over again. The spasming moved from my face to my body. Catch him! I heard Fatima cry as I slumped. The disconnect between my mind and body was complete. It was as if I were watching someone else fall, like I was separated by a wall from influencing my fate. I felt Jakob's arms around my legs and ass. I think I was sitting on him. Fatima's arms were about my chest. I heard Fatima say, There is no time. We have to go now. Yeah, but what if he is right? Jakob pleaded. You are my Ishak, the beloved gift of my heart. Have faith. Allah will send a ram to stand in for you. Have faith. Fatima said softly to his son. I heard the sound of his gloved hand as it brushed Jakob. 15 minutes. You have a watch? My phone, yes, Jakob answered softly. Face the wall and keep the covers over you. Don't be anxious. Our fate has always been in Allah's hands. Fatima leaned forward and pulled aside the front panel of his burqa. I couldn't see his face, but I knew from his body language he had just kissed his son on the forehead. He reattached his veil before turning to me. Can you walk? I tried my feet. I could move slowly. I can walk. Where are you taking me? Fatima directed me to the door. As his hand opened the door for the last time, I heard him whisper, The Star X line. Firmware, Proxy, is the second book in the Firmware pentology. That's 5 books, if you must know. It begins moments after Firmware Hijacked ends. So if you haven't heard or read Firmware Hijacked, this would be a good time to head on over to Colbyjack.net and either download the podcast on the audio side, read the episodes on the visual side, or download the Colbyjack Sunday Reader issues 1 through 20 in your choice of either EPUB or Mobi. Firmware Hijacked and Proxy are both available in ebook versions from our store at shop.colbyjack.net, Amazon.com, and Barnes & Noble. Just search for Colbytrax. That's Colbytrax. I'm the only one. A complete audiobook version of both Firmware Hijacked and Proxy is available for download through our shop as well. If you don't need any stuff, but would like to support our work, drop on by Colbyjack.net and hit the pretty little donate button conveniently located on the right-hand side of the blog roll. If you're on a smaller screen, the button will be found at the bottom of the page. Firmware Proxy is released under a Creative Commons, non-commercial, attribution, share-alike 3.0 license. Do what you want with it, just don't sell it, and always tell people where it came from. If you received this from a friend and want more information about Colbyjack.net and our split personality website, just drop on over to Colbyjack.net and select either the audio or visual side. The audio side carries our podcast, while the visual side carries our writings. Whichever side catches your fancy is fine with us. We're of two minds about the whole thing anyway. If you want to get social with me, I do mostly Twitter. So if you do the tweets and want to follow me, I'm Colbytrax. Spelled the same as above, Colbytrax. We could sing that all night long. Thank you once again and have a wonderful week.